What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the live NBA outlet. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. And with us all week, Jac Manuell. A little bit of news, still waiting on Kawhi, but how we feeling, guys?
Kory has to change his name to TJ.
Yeah, I got to be the fourth TJ now. The Pacers love guys named TJ, but all I really care about is Kawhi Leonard. I seriously feel like I'm checking my phone, just like looking for any piece of tidbit news. I'm at the point where I don't even want to hear any more rumors. I just got to sit this one out until it actually happens.
Yeah, the best tweet I probably saw today, I'm not even sure who it was from. You tweeted out this picture for something else. It was LeBron looking at his phone. It was like LeBron sent all the Space Jam extras and the helicopter to follow Kawhi in Toronto to try to make him not sign there. That was great. The coverage in Toronto is literally crazy. Like, he is so big there.
Yeah, the helicopter following him from the airport through traffic. It almost felt like the O.J. Simpson situation. Like, I felt like I was watching the white Bronco going through the streets. It's just like, nah, just fly, go to a meeting. Just, no big deal. I wonder if that plays a part in it, because I know he did mention he just didn't want to be bothered during this process. And obviously Toronto's like, yo, we're going to literally live stream this on all television where you're going. But yeah, I mean, this is an entire country, right? This is like the face of a country at this point in time.
Yeah, it seems weird that he would go all the way back to Toronto while he's obviously living and staying in LA during the summer to tell them, I can't play with you guys. Just something, and obviously the Jalen Rose sort of tidbit news saying he's 99% sure. It seems to me that, just a couple of days ago, the Los Angeles Lakers, it was set in stone that he'd be joining Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Jared Dudley, baby. And then there's the Clippers news about they wanting to trade for another star. Until anything's set in stone, I'm not buying anything. And, I expected to wake up to something, and I woke up to the fact that, the Raptors are now in the lead. So it's always topsy-turvy. Who knows where he's going to end up. Only Kawhi does.
And I thought it was funny that Woj tweeted something this morning. Like, we expect him to make a decision today, maybe on the 4th of July, maybe later in the week. Like, no one knows. And I think the thing with him going back to Toronto, I didn't look so much into it because I remember reading early on that he promised he would give them the last meeting. But still, he's going a 6-hour flight all the way back to Toronto to really tell them no. It's like he doesn't know. I don't think he really knows at this point. Is there any way that you feel like a team is in the lead or a favorite right now?
I mean, the only thing I would say is to the Lakers being the lead. It's possible that he felt like the Lakers were in the lead if that was the last meeting he had yesterday. It's not weird to say you have 3 job interviews lined up and you like the first one, the second one knocked you off your feet, and you're like, yeah, going into the third one, I think I'm going to take the second one. And then the Raptors' job, him giving them that last ditch effort is, can they woo me when I'm in Toronto? Can they make me feel like, yeah, I definitely just don't want to leave here? And obviously we're going to find that out, whether it's today, tomorrow, 4 weeks from now, who knows at this rate of time. But the decision is certainly coming.
Yeah, I think that if I was Kawhi Leonard, I'd probably do a 1-1 with the Toronto Raptors. That for me makes the most sense, just from an objective standpoint, because you know what the Toronto Raptors organization can provide you. They can provide you with a championship window. They know how to cater to your health needs. The city loves you. You're a star there. You can increase your brand with New Balance. You've got the entire country who loves you, like Kory was sort of saying. Whereas the Lakers and the Clippers would be a bit of a plunge. For me, I think the Clippers are almost out of the race to an extent. I just don't understand. Like I sort of said, the Lakers and the Raptors would provide him with a championship opportunity. Even though the Lakers have 4 players on their roster, even if 3 of them, 2 of them are Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and you add Kawhi Leonard into the mix, that's a championship right there. So for me, it's the Lakers or the Raptors. Do you guys have any qualms with that?
No, I think it's definitely Lakers-Raptors. I think the Clippers' door closed when we saw Jimmy Butler go to Miami. So we had heard the rumblings about Kawhi and Butler wanting to play together. I think if Butler's on the board and the Clippers are trying to facilitate that, then I give it some life. But them not being able to get him, just looking at the market, there's not a lot of stars to trade for. I mean, you're going to go through Kevin Love? I mean, there's just not a lot of guys that go after that make sense to pair with Kawhi. So I think it's down to the Lakers and Raptors. And I think, I don't, like we said, I'm not going to say the Lakers may have the lead right now because it's the last team they met with. But it's definitely between these two teams. I think The only thing I don't like about the 1-1 is because of the health issues he already had, the issue in San Antonio, the fact that he got banged up late in the playoffs last year, even though he had the load management, which he even credited to the fact that he was able to go in these deep playoff runs. Does he feel confident taking a 1-on-1 would be my counter argument. Does he trust himself enough to say, yeah, my body can hold up and I can secure a 1-year deal to get a bigger contract? Because I know in 2 years he has 10 years in the league, and then he'll get like the super max from having tenure.
Yeah,
I think if you look at what Kevin Durant's offseason is almost just like a sort of example to what Kawhi Leonard can look to. Look, this guy did the most serious injury you can do in this sport and is still getting, max offers. Despite the fact that the Knicks didn't offer it, but, James Dolan is an absolute dunder and fool. So I think that Kawhi Leonard obviously is a little bit younger as well. We don't know necessarily his health status right now. Obviously, like you were sort of saying, Kory, the quad and, the load management, everything else around that. But Kawhi Leonard's the best player in the NBA right now. So you'd be silly not to offer him a max contract. There will be 29 other teams. I'm discounting the Knicks because apparently they don't like to give that super max to stars. But yeah, I think any team would give him a max. I think it's almost silly not to.
Yeah, I think there'll be enough money out there regardless, if there is an injury, because I think you feel confident if you manage him right. Because, like, the injury wasn't necessarily something that's like, okay, this is going to get worse. He's going to be done playing basketball. It's just something where maybe you have to give him that load management. Maybe he plays 60, 65, 70 games. It's interesting. I think the Clippers aren't completely out because maybe they pull off some crazy move. But you also can make the argument if the Clippers were to make a trade for a star, it might make more sense to just keep the roster they have, having, depth across the board and having some solid players. Because if they did make a trade, they wouldn't really have leverage because every team knows that they're trying to get Kawhi, so they'd have to give up a lot. And then the Lakers front, Kawhi wants to win, wants to get championships. That makes a lot of sense. And then obviously in Toronto, he already knows what he has. The whole country's behind him, and he led that team to a championship. So it's really hard. And like the fact that Kawhi is such a quiet human, we really have no idea what to expect from him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally just wait and see hour by hour. It would be – didn't Gordon Hayward 2 years ago announce his impending free agency decision on July 4th?
Didn't Durant?
Durant did 1 year too. Yeah, Durant did 1 year. It was a players' tribute, and everyone was like at barbecues and shit. And everyone, I think the talk was that like it was going to happen like later in the next week, and then all of a sudden, boom. I mean, the same thing happened with KD this time. There's a lot of talk about him dragging out free agency. He announced it an hour before free agency even started. So I don't know. With Kawhi, like, would I be completely surprised if he didn't announce it till next week? No. Like, that's just how it is. But, guys, I know we got a couple games on the board for us. Do you want to talk about a couple of the free agency signings from today? Bobby, we saw the separation there between him and Tobias. Obviously, shed a tear for those guys. But, Kory, your team signed TJ McConnell, 2 years, $7 million. How do you feel about that?
Good for point guard depth. We mentioned this a little bit off wax. I always get a laugh when I say off wax, Jack. Thank you for teaching me what it means. But TJ McConnell is a good backup point guard. I think it's a good safety net to have. Obviously, the Pacers are really high on Aaron Holiday. They hope that Holiday can take the next jump and be the backup point guard behind Brogdon. If that falls apart because he is young, perhaps TJ McConnell can become the backup point guard. But realistically, you want him just to be there for a veteran presence to help Aaron Holiday along and to let the young guys progress. But it's a solid backup. I mean, his numbers are identical to Corey Joseph, but not to the extent where he probably can't hit threes as often. Definitely can't hit threes, if I'm being fair, and is a subpar defender.
Jack, any thoughts on TJ?
I thought that, Philadelphia, he seemed like just a really sort of Philadelphia sort of fit. But it also, in terms of just like his personality, his on-court play, but I think he's going to fit in Indiana perfectly. Sort of the gritty style. I think he'll be a really sort of hustle guy, and provide you insurance at a position which is incredibly important. I'm hoping that Aaron Holiday still gets some minutes because I really liked him. I even liked him in the playoffs in his Spurs that he was sort of providing. Gives you a sort of element of athleticism that the Pacers don't really necessarily have outside of Victor Oladipo. If you've got a guy like Malcolm Brogdon who isn't the most athletic guy either. So just to have that point of difference. But, TJ McConnell is good insurance because, injuries happen throughout the 82-game season. And until that bad boy is shortened, you need all the depth that you can get.
100%. I think it's a good depth add. And with Holiday, obviously, he's a young guy. You're not sure if he can run the show. TJ McConnell, you know what you're going to get. He's not a crazy player, but he's a good locker room guy, plays with energy. You mentioned that Philadelphia grit. Another interesting signing in the Central Division, the Detroit Pistons grabbed Markieff Morris with the biannual exception. Pretty nice signing for them. Obviously, they got him at a good price because Markieff has really dealt with injuries the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. Markieff is not the better of the Morris brothers. I would prefer Marcus. Markieff
he was at one point, though.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't at one point. You're 100% right. Looking at the past year, Markieff was obviously struggling in OKC, coming back from injury. And not a bad move here, Detroit. You need as many of these little pieces you can get for cheap as possible. Obviously, their cap situation sucks between the big 3 guys they're paying. But I do not hate this move for the Pistons, who are trying to be more than an 8 seed, so you don't have to see the Bucks in the first round next year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he really moves the wheel that much. I think if Markieff gets himself healthy, I think a full offseason so he can attack training camp, it will make that signing look even better. But, when these lingering injuries sort of happen, we thought that when he was heading to the Thunder, he was a great little pickup for them at the trade deadline, but he didn't really add much, if anything, to their sort of playoff run. So maybe a full off season where he can get his body right and attack the regular season with a little more gusto. I think he can add something to Detroit. I think Detroit have made some nice-ish moves. You add Derrick Rose as well. That puts some bums on seats, sells a few tickets, and then also I think that they'll still be around that sort of 6 to 8 seat range if Blake Griffin remains healthy.
Yeah, I think with what they have in terms of cap-wise, this was a solid move. Maybe he gets healthy, and maybe you allows you to play Blake a little bit more at the 5, and then you have Markieff Morris in there. Obviously, injuries, and then he had a neck injury, which is something somewhat scary, especially for a basketball player. You're constantly looking up, moving around, head movements and whatnot. But probably the biggest move of the day, the Grizzlies are sending a veteran Kyle Korver, Javon Carter to the Suns in exchange for Josh Jackson, D'Anthony Melton, and a pair of second-round picks. And it looks like Kyle Korver is most likely going to be bought out. We kind of talked about that the other day.
Like it.
Ironic that Kyle. I mean, this to me is. It's a little bit of whatever. I like it for the Hawks. I think the Hawks have continued to just win in this offseason. Parsons, you consolidate all that money into one contract, and Parsons has potential to be a somewhat useful role player. Obviously, not going to be worth that money ever. I think at this point in time, we can all be fair on that. And then Kyle Korver getting the boot and being bought out, I think that's interesting because what team is the first team you see linked? The Los Angeles Lakers. Like, go figure. Probably where he ends up. What does 39, 40-year-old Korver look like at this point in time? Still can hit the shot, I'm sure, but it's an interesting move.
Yeah, I think that what the Hawks have been doing this entire offseason is what the New York Knicks should have been doing this offseason. Other than the Julius Randle signing, taking on bad contracts and getting assets in return. The Clippers, getting Mo Harkless, a serviceable role player, and getting a first rounder. The Allen Crabbe deal that the Nets made to free up some contract space, salary cap space, and also getting the first rounder in return too. And I like the Anthony Melton. I really hope that he gets a shot at it because, there was a lot of talk. He's been bumped around from being originally selected by the Houston Rockets with that number 40 pick, then going to the Suns where they sort of needed a point guard. And he didn't really even get a shot there. I think he's got something to give, and it'll be nice to sort of see, hopefully, especially for a lot of draft heads out there, if he can actually prove something on a roster. Because I think that, you want these kids to have a fair shot at it, and hopefully he gets one.
Yeah, and you feel like in Phoenix, nobody ever really gets a fair shot or the development just isn't great. So see what happens with that. But, guys, like we mentioned earlier, we got a couple games to run through, a couple different segments. Who wants to go first?
Kory.
All right. So we're doing buy or sell. This is based off what we know right now in the offseason. And the Brooklyn Nets aren't on this list. We're all buying stock, right? I think it's fair. We're all buying Brooklyn stock with them getting
me and Jack are pretty upset that we're not on the list.
Okay. Well, I figured we would all be a collective buy on the Brooklyn Nets. And whatever team Kawhi goes to, that team will probably be a buy as well. Okay. So first team, the Utah Jazz, buying or selling?
The most obvious buy of the offseason. Everyone's sort of team where it's just like under the radar, oh, they're going to win the West. It's like, it ain't under the radar anymore, homies. They got like Bojan Bogdanovic, they got, Ed Davis, and they got Mike Conley, and the Western Conference, the teams around them haven't got that much better. the Denver Nuggets are banking on internal growth, despite the fact that the Portland Trailblazers are suddenly getting some noise. I don't really understand what they've done that has made them that much of a better team. I think the Hassan Whiteside contract maybe allows him to do a little bit of something. Kevin Love, which I would like. I've sort of advocated for that around a lot of other NBA circles. So, yeah, I think the Utah Jazz is a real obvious buy. I think that the Bojan Bogdanovic contract, just slightly, is an overpay. And I think it could end up looking a little bit ugly, not necessarily to the extent of like a Terry Rozier contract, because I still think they'll get value out of it. But, it wasn't the perfect offseason, but the Utah Jazz have given themselves a window and are, the number one sort of team outside of the Brooklyn Nets probably this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think you buy. And with the Bogdanovic thing, definitely is an overpay, but I think we mentioned this before. Small markets usually have to overpay a little bit, and they were trying to steal him away from the Pacers, who wanted to obviously re-sign him. Other than some of the bigger moves, obviously you mentioned Mike Conley, Ed Davis. Emmanuel Mudiay, I thought that was a solid signing as well. They picked up Jeff Green too, so the depth is there for this team. I'm pretty excited to see what they can do, so definitely a buy for me. Kory, what else you got?
Yeah, I'm buying as well. Next up, Orlando Magic.
I think that if you like 7-foot guys who have wingspan, you're buying all this stock. But if you like 3-point shooting, you're selling it like crazy. The Orlando Magic I don't know what it is within their front office, what their sort of overarching goal is. It seems to me like a lot of other teams, at least have some semblance of a goal. It's like, oh, we really want the big free agents. You at least know about the Knicks that they want to get that big fish. With the Orlando Magic, what are they trying to do? I like the re-signing of Nikola Vucevic, and I think it's actually unders in terms of what they got him for. I think that Terrence Ross was a little bit of overs, but I think that when it comes to free agency, you have to pay that little bit extra, similar in a Bojan Bogdanovic sort of mold. And then all the other guys like Al-Farouq Aminu, all these sort of dudes where it's just like, how many power forwards and centers do you have? It's just like when they verse the Knicks, it's going to be like 8 power forwards on the court at the same time.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Jack. I think it's a sell here just because, you don't see what the long game is here. Are they going to be this team that just competes for 8th, 7th, and 6th seed? Their ceiling just isn't that high. Obviously, they have some young talent, but they don't really have great guard play, and they didn't improve in that area this year. You think they would have been a team that maybe goes hard after Malcolm Brogdon or even grabbing Terry Rozier, just having a point guard of the future. Obviously, they they traded for Markelle Fultz, but we don't really know what's up with Markelle Fultz. So I'm going with sell. What about you, Kory?
Yeah, I'm selling too. For a lot of reasons you guys mentioned. I'm not gonna give. What?
I was gonna say, can Markelle Fultz be anything? I've heard on the Jay Williams and Zach Lowe podcast that he's gonna be having an interview with Jay Williams, who's really respected personality, has really good relationships with a lot of guys. He has said that his body looks great, but we've heard from the front office of the Orlando Magic that they don't even know when he's gonna play. I mean, the ESPN 30 for 30, the tell-all book, the autobiography for this will sell millions. But it seems to me that, Markelle Fultz is as mysterious as Kawhi Leonard in many ways.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Kory.
I just want to say I would, and the not knowing when he comes back, I think that's more so of a thing that they don't want to push him. Because I think this is more of a mental issue than it is as much as a physical. So if you're Orlando, you just want to do whatever is good for his psyche and for his mental at this point in time.
100% agree. I think you don't want to put pressure on him. And I don't think anybody really knows what he's going to be. I mean, you draft a player, you don't know if he's going to turn to that talent in the first place. And then all the hurdles he's had to face as such a young kid in this league. Right now, I don't think you're hoping he could be an all-star. You're just hoping maybe he can be a starting level player.
Yeah. Next up, the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, see, I think the Boston Celtics, if you're looking at their offseason as a whole, they didn't do too badly, But I think if you're looking at the moves individually, I think you'd almost sell it. Kemba Walker sort of nullifies the Kyrie Irving loss, but they also lost Al Horford and Aaron Baines, so they don't have a center. So for me, just by virtue of that alone, they almost lose. I mean, you get Enes Kanter, who apparently only had 6 minutes to decide, despite the fact that Damian Lillard and everything else.
It came out today from Russillo that he had 45 minutes.
Exactly, and that's what Damian Lillard said as well. I think that he's just such an attention seeker. He's too busy doing RKOs on his Instagram to be worrying about that sort of stuff. And I'm going to like that defense. Enes Kanter and Kemba Walker, baby. The Boston Celtics might not be the defensive juggernaut they've always been. If Brad Stevens can get something out of those two, then give him Coach of the Year already. I would almost sell, despite the fact that I think the Boston Celtics will be better than they were last season. But I think that if you had retained Aaron Baines, I probably would have bought.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like the defense is a drop off because Horford obviously is a huge defensive player. Baines gives him that presence in the paint. And for a guy that's not super fast, he's great at body positioning and just being a load inside. Then obviously you mentioned the Kyrie Kemba swap. It's kind of an even swap right there, especially I guess if you consider the chemistry between Kyrie and the other guys in the roster. They did also sign a French center. Not sure what his name is, not really sure the skill set. Our guy Matt wrote a great piece on OTG about that, so check that out. But I think they're going to drop off. I think the chemistry is there, but defensively, like there's a lot of issues. You mentioned Enes Kanter and Kemba Walker. Like Kemba improved as a defender as an NBA career, but you get those two in a pick and roll, you're feeling pretty good about it.
And as who's their backup point guard? Is Romeo Langford really going to be relying on a rookie? Like I would almost prefer, back in the day where they had like Shane Larkin doing some things.
They have Wanamaker, who was on the team last year. He was a third string. He's an okay player. He's not like gonna, put the world on fire or anything, but he can run the show. I think Brad Stevens likes him.
I think you need a point guard, like, and maybe you need just a vet sort of guy. Jose Calderon is just insurance. I think TJ McConnell sort of would have been a nice sort of fit there too. But the pace is sort of struck there, which I think when other teams in the same conference take away, some sort of commodity, I think that benefits them greatly, but also benefits them in the sense that an opponent didn't get them at the same time.
100%. I think maybe you probably have Marcus Smart run the backup point guard role a little bit. He's done that in the past. I think that's the best bet right there. I mean, Brad Stevens is going to be able to really coach this year. He doesn't have as big personalities, which seemed to be an issue last year. So see what he can do.
Yeah, definitely. The New York Knicks.
Bye. Nah, I'm joking. I don't hate everything that they've done. I don't like the things that they've done. I think that their strategy, and if we're looking just at the signings as a whole, the contract status of them isn't horrible. All of them are team options on that sort of the second years for Taj Gibson and stuff, aren't they?
Yep, except Julius Randle, who's a third-year option.
Oh, yeah. Yes, and that makes sense because Julius Randle had a productive season. He's a productive guy, and maybe him and Mitch Robinson could be something, because Julius Randle really lacks the sort of defensive acumen, but Mitchell Robinson is turning into a little bit of a defensive stud. But they should have got some guards outside of Elfrid Payton, essentially replacing Elfrid Payton with Emmanuel Mudiay. No, other way around. Emmanuel Mudiay with Elfrid Payton. It's a weird sort of, replacement. But, Elfrid Payton put up some okay numbers in New Orleans to a similar extent that Julius Randle did. But I don't think he adds to winning basketball, which is, what I sort of judge a lot of NBA players on. And I think as well, just the optics around their offseason. Who made Scott Perry, the front office, Scott Mills, put out that stupid media release? If that was James Dolan, then that dude, I mean, the loud noise around him selling the team have been growing to a fervent pitch. But why put out that media release? You don't have to do that. You control the narrative, and now the narrative makes it look like you are inept and incapable of getting these free agents and just staying pat and being comfortable with the direction that you're taking. I think the Knicks are going to be okay. They're not in a horrible position. They're not in a great position though either.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't make any terrible decisions. It's not like they maxed out somebody for a 4-year contract. They didn't deserve it or something like that. I like the fact that, a lot of the guys are probably slightly overpaid, but giving themselves a team option with flexibility makes them more of a trade target for, other teams. Maybe they can get assets like that. But if you look at a lot of the guys that they do have, none of them are probably going to get you a first-round pick. I would have probably tried to hold on to some empty cap space because, a team in the middle of the season is going to try to make a trade. If you're one of the teams that have cap space, you could definitely grab a first-round pick. And then, like you mentioned, Jack, the whole press release thing is not a good look. And then the whole fact that you're not willing to max out Kevin Durant, I think that sends the wrong message, especially because it's coming from James Dolan. And what the Knicks have been trying to do is be like, hey, James Dolan doesn't have an impact on basketball operations. And what that does is pretty much tell the league, yeah, he's still putting some noise in that section. So, I mean, I think from the signing perspective, I would give it a small buy. But from the overall perspective of the front office and the organization, I'd give it a sell.
You know what I hate about the buys, though, as well, in terms of the assets that they've acquired? Kevin Knox and RJ Barrett are the foundation right now, and they're the sort of assets that you have on the roster. So you want to maximize those assets by giving them free reign to make mistakes, to grow. But then you've got a guy, Julius Randle, who hogs the ball, not in a negative way. He just needs the ball in his hands. Bobby Portis as well, whenever he's on the court, loves to have the ball in his hands. I don't think Kevin Knox is going to get any better with these guys around him, especially because they're all front court players. I think in the future, Kevin Knox is best as a 4. RJ Barrett 2, 3, 4 can probably play either of those sort of positions. But I don't like those acquisitions because there's no spacing there either. Like, who of them can actually shoot threes? It's just a mismatch of really big guys who can't shoot and hog the ball a little bit.
Yeah, I have a slight buy just because I think a lot of these guys are movable. Like Nick said, do they get back a first-round draft pick? Maybe like a late one, but like nothing that's going to like, oh, yes, we're getting draft picks. And I think you guys are both right. When it comes to ownership, everything that's happened off the court and behind the scenes, kind of a mess. I don't believe James Dolan didn't offer the max. I believe that's like the I'm a salty kid mentality of this person wasn't going to come here, so I'm going to say I wasn't going to offer him money because we know damn well that almost any team in the NBA would have offered Kevin Durant the money if they had the opportunity to. So I think that's just James Dolan being a child.
And I agree wholeheartedly with that because I remember we chatted about when that news literally dropped, and despite the fact that Woj and Ramona Shelburne, two of the most credible media sources when it comes to NBA basketball, just because someone told you something doesn't make it true.
Right.
They can say that they said that, but that doesn't mean that they actually did it. That's so I buy into that as well, Kory.
And Jay Williams even hinted at that on the Low Post pod, saying like James Dolan really didn't offer the max. Like, no. Like, come on. That's insulting to Durant.
Durant, just a quick thought.
Yeah.
Durant didn't even take the max. And then, like, I was listening to some podcasts today. I can't recall who it was. But the word is that he wasn't considering the Knicks for a while. The last second that he really considered the Knicks was when Kawhi called and was like, hey, maybe we'll team up, because he was kind of surprised about that call. And that was one of the only spots they could technically team up other than the Clippers because the Nets were already locked in at Kyrie. So it seemed like a couple weeks earlier, it was pretty much between Golden State and Brooklyn.
Interesting. I didn't hear about that. So next up, the Sacramento Kings.
So let's go through, I guess, what they've sort of done this offseason.
A lot.
They've done a lot. They've lost Willie Cauley-Stein. They've added Trevor Ariza. They've added Harrison Barnes. Who else have they added?
Dwayne Dedmon and Corey Joseph.
Dwayne Dedmon and
Corey Joseph. So all these sort of pieces, and all of them pretty much overpaid.
Yeah, all four.
I will say one positive thing about Harrison Barnes' contract that is declining, which makes it a lot easier to trade farther down the line.
Yeah, I think that similar. I think with when the opportunity was offered to and also to Aaron Gordon. I think that when the contracts are managed in a certain sort of way, it does look a little bit better. And I don't think his is that much of an overpay. I think Harrison Barnes is worth around probably $18 million as my probably ceiling. But I don't understand why you would offer such a lofty number. 2 years, $25 million, wasn't it for Trevor Ariza?
Yes.
That's way too much for a guy who's barely on his last legs, hasn't shown enough, and apparently was that good in Washington. And I think that Dwayne Dedmon, there was talk around, maybe some team could sort of sneak him in on the mid-level exception or the taxpayer exception in that sort of sense, which would be around that $5 million range. But they paid overpays on it as well. But I think that they're trying to really bank on that sort of 8 seed. The ceiling on this team right now is probably 7 or 8 seed. They get that little bit better, but I think as well that I probably think would almost be really hunting Iman Shumpert in the offseason. I'm not sure how many places they have on that roster still as a sort of buyout guy, as a vet minimum guy, because I really valued, and from all the words coming out from De'Aaron Fox and the young guys, Buddy Hield, how much he added to that locker room. And I think that you need that locker room presence. And I think that if they were to get him, I'd consider it a buy. But for me right now, it's a sell.
I think it's a sell because I don't mind overpaying players if you have a hard time attracting them to where you are in Sacramento. Obviously, not necessarily the best organization, but you got to do it on short-term deals. You got to do it with flexible deals where you're able to move these guys, because now you're stuck with a lot of these contracts. And then at times, like, some of these guys are going to be on the bench. Some of them are going to be starting. Like, it's interrupting your growth. And then we kind of talked about this on the live show, is now, like, you're going to have to pay a couple of these other guys. Their contracts are going to eventually run out. And now you have all this money locked up to, no disrespect, mediocre players. None of these guys are like world burners. None of them are like, oh my God, this is, all-star potential. Nobody out of they signed is probably an above average starter. Maybe Harrison Barnes, but that depends on who you're asking.
Yeah, I'm actually going with buy. Now, granted, the overpays are there, and that's evident with some of the money these guys got. But I would also make the argument this could be like a 6 seed at best in the West, possibly, because I think if Fox takes a jump, if Hield takes a jump, if Barnes just kind of fits in better, because he was kind of just, I think it's hard to go to a new situation with all those mouths to feed in Sacramento, who was already having a good season, and then kind of have Barnes kind of just slide in and get the touches I think he needs or warranted, whatever the case may be. Bagley, does he take a step forward? He had a pretty good rookie year. How does Harry Giles? Yeah, Harry Giles come back. For some reason, I think like the One Direction guy, Harry Styles, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the One Direction guy?
Him, my dude. He don't have that hair.
We know that Kory listens to.
Yeah, and then you needed a center, so you get Dwayne Dedmon, who, yes, clear overpay, but a guy who can shoot a little bit. Was obviously a guy who everyone was asking about prior to free agency. At least that was a rumor saying, like, can we maybe steal Dwayne Dedmon? So I think the roster as a collective got better. Are all those guys overpaid? And in 2-3 years down the line, are we going to be saying, like, yeah, that Dedmon contract or that Corey Joseph contract is bad? Like, yeah, Trevor Ariza, good bet, probably gets traded. I feel like somebody comes and just knocks on the door for Ariza. But I think this put the Kings in a better position to be a playoff team. And I think if the right guys take a jump, then I could see them being a sneaky 6 seed.
But like their cap is probably a 6 seed. Like they're
right
with this roster construction, and they have no flexibility to be like, okay, we can go and become, a 4 or 5 seed or maybe get higher. I think that's the issue. Is like short term, yeah, it'll help them progress and maybe help change their image a little bit, making the playoffs. But long term, it's like now it's like, oh shit, like we're stuck in being a mediocre playoff team, which I think is one of the worst things you can be in the NBA.
Yeah, and that's gonna wrap it up for buy and sell.
All right, Jack, you want to go next, or you want me up?
Nah, let me go. I'm sick of hearing Kory just talk. I want to hold something down. Let me give some hosted duties. You guys know the Jac Manuell scale, don't you?
Yeah, running through it though for the fans.
Yeah, because it's a horribly complicated and convoluted scale that I still don't understand. But if you want to get some merch, csgntree.com. It'll help you understand it. Flash off the glass. So it's based on rumors and rumblings and takes around the NBA, and you have to give your opinion on it. And we grade it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, and straight up fact. So it's on longer scale. And these are all based off sort of things I've seen around the NBA Twitter sphere and social media. Now let's get to this first one. Rather than signing, and this is by the NBA Buzz on Facebook, rather than signing Jared Dudley, the Lakers should have signed Carmelo Anthony.
That's a Twitter fact.
Ooh.
Wait, Jack, what's the lowest one again?
Alternative fact.
Alternative fact.
I'll say Twitter fact only because I think if you wanted some more offense, I think Melo could provide some more offense. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at locker room presence, I mean, what Jared Dudley did in Brooklyn, there's no question that did wonders for that team, and just having his, especially in that first round playoff, I think like he was just like the backbone of that team in a lot of ways. So I think you can't underestimate that. But I'll say somewhat Twitter facts. I think if you're looking at it from like what we know, what we at least think Carmelo Anthony still is, you see more offense, you see more of a flashy player than Jared Dudley, the name.
I think the Lakers really need a guy like Jared Dudley, especially because, you have AD and you have LeBron, and we know LeBron locker rooms always haven't been amazing. Dudley's like the perfect guy, and I don't know if you guys heard on the Woj pod. He asked LeBron, like, do you want to play with me? And LeBron wanted him to be there. So I think that says a lot. And Melo, like, we know Jared Dudley doesn't really care about his role. Like, if he's not playing any minutes, he's okay with it. If you need him to play 15 minutes, he's okay with that. I think with Carmelo, it's still like, what does Carmelo think he is in the NBA?
Yeah, Crimson Striker in the chat as well, that they'll probably get a Melo eventually anyway, and that's what I sort of think anyway. And we'll address your Wilson Chandler comment,
especially if they lose Kawhi. Melo's like a lock, I think, to go to LA.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll also address the Wilson Chandler comment soon. We're going to be doing a buzz very soon, my dude. Now, there's obviously some extension news around the NBA. Ben Simmons' future max contract will age worse than Jamal Murray's.
Your mic is muted, bro.
Come on, Kory.
No, my mom was asking if I wanted to go out with them. I was like, no, I can't. Podcasting. This was about the Ben Simmons extension.
No, she actually just said that Carmelo Anthony would have been a bad signing.
The Ben Simmons extension. What is the actual? Is it going to be good long term?
Yeah, in comparison to say Jamal Murray's, it'll be worse. Which one will be worse?
Which one do I think? I think I don't even know. Nick, go first. I don't know. I really don't know.
I think they'll both age fine, to be honest. I don't know where I would put that in terms of a fact, because I think like Ben Simmons, if it doesn't work out in Philadelphia, he's still attractive for other teams if they have the right pieces around him. Like we've talked about before a lot on this show, is like he needs to be surrounded by 4 shooters because he can't shoot, but his skill set is really good when he has the ball in his hands and he has space to attack, because he's still a tough guy to defend one-on-one around the rim. Like he can finish in the paint, and defensively, he's still a really versatile player.
I'm ready. I go with Ben Simmons over Jamal Murray. So I think there's more cons to Jamal Murray's game in the long term than there's to Ben Simmons. Like Ben Simmons is, can he ever shoot? But Jamal Murray, it's if he doesn't become a consistent player, there's not a lot there that you desire. I mean, he is a decent playmaker, but not a great defender. So I think if he's not becoming a consistent scorer, then he doesn't provide as much impact to a game as a Ben Simmons does probably long term.
Yeah, I think ceiling for both of these guys is Ben Simmons was probably fringe all NBA last season, but I think Jamal Murray can get to that level soon enough. But yeah, I think it's all predicated. Ben Simmons is closer to superstardom than Jamal Murray is right now. It's just dependent on, I think that there's a lot of variable factors, obviously, the number one thing being that jump shot, whether he changes his hand and the rest. But boys, Isaiah Thomas will vitalize his career in Washington. Where does this go on my complicated scale?
Twitter fact. Probably Twitter fact. Because I think there's still hope. There's still the chance that we see what he did to the Wizards a couple years ago with the Celtics. Still in Isaiah Thomas, but we just haven't seen it. So I'll say Twitter fact, because there is some hope out there.
Yeah, I'll go with Twitter fact as well. I think there's a little bit of hope, but at the end of the day, like even if he does well with Washington, it doesn't make you think that he'll contribute to a winning team. Yeah. And he was on Denver last year and they had issues. They probably could have used quote unquote the Isaiah Thomas we're thinking of, but I just don't think he's there anymore. And defensively, he's just so bad that I just don't know if there's a role for him on a championship or even like a high playoff seed.
See, like I think because the Wizards literally don't have a point guard right now. Like, Thomas Satoransky isn't there anymore. I don't know of any other point guards on their roster. So I think Isaiah Thomas is going to have a shot, a fullest opportunity to go at it. If his body is healthy, I'm not saying he's going to get to anywhere close to near like the 4th MVP and the king of the 4th sort of range, what he had in Boston. But I think that the Washington Wizards, funnily enough, will provide him the best opportunity for that. How much it does revitalize his career, I don't know. But I'm going to give it a bit strong. I'll give him probably a wiki, because I think that in Denver he was behind Jamal Murray and a heap of these other guys who he just didn't fit in the rotation, whereas I think he fits in Washington's rotation that little bit better. But the next one, the Warriors will remain a contender next season with the moves they've made in free agency so far.
And I lost my screen. I'll say Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia fact.
Yep.
That means that's not the best, right? That's like
just under the best, just under.
Right. So the Wikipedia fact. I mean, this is still a championship caliber, a pedigree team. You still got Curry coming back. You got Draymond on a contract year. You're going to have D'Lo, I think, for majority of this year. I know there's rumors that they're going to look to trade him, but I think the hope is to at least have him for this year to remain competitive before Clay's fully healthy would be my guess. Maybe even up his stock going into next offseason to get a better piece to pair with Curry and Clay and Draymond going forward, maybe even. So I think they're going to remain a competitive nature. Are they going to be a home court advantage team in the playoffs? I doubt it, but I still think they're a playoff team, and it's still a team that you're going to have to worry about on a nightly basis.
Jack, was the question there a playoff team or a contender?
Contender.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. I go with alternative.
I'll go with Twitter fact because I think there's still a slight chance they could be a contender. Like, say Clay gets healthy, D'Angelo carries them, and Steph and D'Angelo kind of carry them offensively. They get maybe a mid-playoff seed. They could easily upset somebody in the first round that plays back and healthy. Like, they still would have Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and D'Angelo Russell gives them way more spacing than anybody else not named Kevin Durant, who was on the roster last year. So I think, and there's a chance, I think D'Angelo Russell could actually be really good with the Warriors. I know a lot of people are like hating on the move. I think it's a really good move for them, and I think there's a chance they could get into the second round, and then after the second round, you never know. Like, Steph and Clay are both guys that can single-handedly win you a playoff game if they get extremely hot.
Yeah, I think just asset acquisition, what they've done, signing Willie Cauley-Stein to a minimum.
True.
It's fathoms belief, and Glenn Robinson as well. I think will be, it provides them some depth, which they so sorely lacked last season. But now they're getting it, and now that it's a time where they probably need it more than ever. But we'll do this last one. Retiring Kevin Durant's jersey in Golden State simply isn't warranted.
I'll say Wikipedia fact. No, not warranted. Not warranted. I'll say
guess what? I'm gonna go with a Twitter fact because he's got 2 Finals MVPs. He got 2 championships with the guy. He's still one of the greatest players ever. He played arguably 2 of the best basketball seasons, you'll see out of any players in NBA history because he was so good on both ends of the floor. Obviously, defensively was a little inconsistent, but at times when he wanted to be really good defensively, he was rock solid. And he, carried them at moments, and he destroyed like the Cleveland team in the finals. Like he just completely destroyed them.
Yeah, I'll say Twitter fact as well. Obviously, when you've gone to 3 straight NBA finals, all 3 years with a team, 2 finals MVPs, 2 championships, I think it warrants some sort of recognition for the fact that you came into a situation like that and were able to compete at the highest level and win. So yeah, I think there's some truth to his jersey deserving to be retired.
Yeah, they just don't want to get sued. I'm buying into that whole thing. I think it's funny. But that's it for the Jac Manuell scale. Catch more of that one on JBT this weekend. Subscribe on iTunes. Do the rest like all the other podcasts on the OTG network.
Should I leave and try and come back for my camera?
Yeah, we can't promise we'll let you come back, but yeah, you could try. This is now Brooklyn Buzz. No, just kidding. I guess we should wait for Kory to come back. We could talk a little bit about the KD thing. I think it is interesting in the sense that, they don't want to get sued, but I think they do owe him something because they could have just kind of cost him a good chunk of his career or cost him his legacy in terms of going from being like an all-time great to being a top 10 all-time great.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that once time goes on, his time in Golden State will be looked upon in a much more favorable light than it was in the moment. And even now, obviously, in the moment, there was some highly irrational takes and some, quite obviously some mean stuff said. But Crimson Striker, Nick, I'll throw this at you until we wait for the faceless man to get back.
I'm back.
Oh, he's got a face. Cool. There we go. Crimson Striker says Steph MVP discussions. I buy that. I buy that into next season. I think Steph's going to have a gargantuan regular season if he remains healthy.
I buy it too. I think Steph's just going to light it up. I mean, his efficiency might not be as high as we've seen in the past, but he's going to be taking the most shots we've seen in a while. And it's nice they have D'Angelo Russell because it makes it just a little bit harder for them to double team or trap him as much at the top of the key because D'Angelo can get some attention, especially if he's hot. And, Jack and I, we've seen this a lot. D'Lo can really cook if he gets going.
TJ?
Yeah, I would say there's – you call me TJ. I would definitely say there's a chance he wins MVP this year. I mean, the scoring output he's going to have to put up this season could be to the James Harden extent. I don't think he's going to ball hog like that, but him putting up, 30 to 36 points a night doesn't seem out of the range of possibilities.
How much would 3 MVPs mean for Steph? That's a lot. That's a lot.
He's got no finals MVPs, dude. He's got no finals.
Appreciate
Show up.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have any finals MVP on their roster anymore. Andre Iguodala's gone.
True.
And Kevin Durant's gone. So, I mean, they're not going to be making the finals anytime soon, in my eyes. But who knows? They could surprise us all. Clay could get back and be absolutely superhuman. Those, newspaper fire kicks apparently could sell and, just give him some new life. But
they do look dope. Can we be fair? They do look kind of cool.
They're a bit busy, though. That's what I always find about a lot of just general fashion. When it's too busy, it's just dude, just chill. They're more something you wouldn't wear those. You like to have them on the mantelpiece, and if you're PJ Tucker, you add them to your thousands and thousands of kicks you already own. Whereas I'm not being biased at all. I could literally get them out right now from my room. But I love the Kyries. I've got 2 pairs of the Kyries.
Yeah, you just don't like to be busy. See, this shirt, this screams busy. This screams give me some busy on my shoes.
This screams look at me a lot. It's hey, I'm a traffic cone. What's up?
Swerve.
But,
all right, Nick, what's your game?
All right, yeah, I guess I should get into it. Just one thought about the Warriors in terms of contending. I think a lot depends on if they'll ever contend again. Would be what's Klay Thompson like when he's back? Because we still have to remember this team was extremely good. Obviously, no Andre Iguodala, but if they can have D'Angelo Russell take on a good role, or they can trade him for some other good role players, Like they could be back to contending as long as the Lakers don't get Kawhi. But that's for a whole nother day.
I think that's fair.
But for my game, I don't even know. It's not even really a game. I'm just going to give you a contract between 2 or 3 guys, and you're going to tell me which one you think is a better deal. So we'll start off. I try to get players either at similar positions or similar stature in the league. So we're going to start off with Tobias Harris, 5 years, 180, and then Chris Middleton, 5 years, 178.
Chris Middleton, 5 years, 178, because it's $2 million cheaper, and Chris Middleton's a better defender.
It's Chris Middleton because I think Middleton's just the overall better player right now still. I think he's a better wing defender, I think. Shoots the 3. That's like a washout. I like his length, his ability to defend multiple positions. I would go with Middleton as well.
And I think the Bucks needed to retain him more. We're not saying that the Sixers didn't need to retain Tobias Harris, but they would still have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and a ton of cap space. Where the Bucks didn't retain Chris Middleton, they would have been screwed because they didn't really have any cap space and there's no one really to replace him. But next up, Nikola Vucevic at 4 years, $100 million, or Al Horford at 4 years, $97 million guaranteed, and then 107. I think what is it?
109.
Yeah, 109. That portion not guaranteed.
It's going to be weird to say that Nikola Vucevic has a better contract, but he does. I think that Nikola Vucevic, obviously, I think because he's a bit younger as well. If we're talking about the value of the contract over the next 2 seasons, I think Al Horford wins out hands down. It's just going to be it's hard to forecast guys in their late 30s. He's 33 right now. By the end of that contract, it's going to be 37. And that's not to say that I don't think Al Horford will age horribly. I just don't think that he's going to be a $29 million a year or $25 million a year contract player at that age. Whereas I think Nikola Vucevic for the next 4 seasons will be a $25 million a year player. He's the best player. If you're paying your best player $25 million a season, that's actually an underpay. Nikola Vucevic was an all-star last season as well. If he can maintain that form for at least 3 of the 4 years, then I think it's a bargain contract to an extent.
Yeah, I'm going with Vucevic as well. I mean, Vucevic is going to be 29 in October. I think you're looking at the money-wise. It's a safer bet long-term for Vucevic, who also after 2 years you can trade possibly. Al Horford after 2 years you probably can't trade. You're stuck with Al Horford for the duration of this contract, especially with how he's probably going to look in the latter part that was over $40 million. I think the last year, right?
I think the last year is partially guaranteed. I know originally it was reported that it was bonuses, but I saw something today that said only $12 million of the last year is guaranteed, which obviously is crucial.
Yeah, that helps a little bit actually.
We don't really know the details on these deals until like a month from now or 2 months from now. Right. Sometimes things drop way later on, but I agree. I think even the fact is Vucevic, for the 4 years you feel more confident with him meeting the value. Where Al Horford, you feel probably confident for the first 2 years. 3rd year gets scary. 4th year really scary. Then you also have to remember, like, what are you asking Al Horford to be, your 3rd or 4th best player? Where, like Jack mentioned, you're asking Vucevic to be your best player at $25 million, which is probably hard to find around the league.
Yeah,
definitely.
So next one, we're going to go with D'Angelo Russell, 4 years, 117, or Malcolm Brogdon, 4 years, 85.
Ooh, it's a tough one. I think the pros and cons. I'm going to go D'Angelo Russell for his one, just because I don't think I'll be allowed to go host the Buzz, or any Brooklyn Nets fans would like me anymore, or Golden State Warriors fans. So I don't want to alienate too many fan bases. Whereas I think that Malcolm Brogdon is on a good contract, but I don't think that we're going to see Malcolm Brogdon get any better. Whereas I think D'Angelo Russell has an obvious higher ceiling. He's obviously younger. And I think that we can see him pop offensively to be one of the best offensive point guards in the game when some of these other guys, Damian Lillard, Kyrie Irving, starts to get that little bit older. So it's also unders in terms of the contract that they paid him. And I think that it's hard to sort of say because at the same time, Malcolm Brogdon on 4 years, $85 million is also overs because, if he hadn't have had the strong postseason that he did, I don't think he's getting in that $20 million range that he did acquire. Whereas I think, and you could say the same thing about D'Angelo Russell with the Caris LeVert injury. If Caris LeVert hadn't have had that horrific injury and D'Angelo Russell wasn't forced to step up, then maybe D'Angelo Russell could be on a similar contract to what Zach LaVine is, 4 years, $76 million. But, both of them are slight overpays to an extent, but both of them are also valuable to their respective teams. For Golden State, they've got a guy alongside Stephen Curry that provides some real offensive pop and can also be an asset in a trade, which has been rumored really heavily. And for the Indiana Pacers, they've got Malcolm Brogdon, who I think pairs perfectly alongside Victor Oladipo. combo guard, not necessarily a pure point guard, but the dude averages like 50, 40, 90 on a regular basis. So I think both of them are valuable, but I'll probably just go with D'Lo because he's my boy.
Yeah, and I'm going to be obviously on the opposite side of this, go figure, where I think Brogdon's the better deal. But also, I think Brogdon's just like the safer player at this point in time. Not that I think Brogdon's the better player or going to be the better player long term, but I mentioned this before about D'Angelo. This could be peak D'Angelo Russell, whereas he's a streaky shooter who sometimes needs to be high volume, can definitely knock down the 3 ball and have these great offensive spurts, but isn't a great defender, possibly still a very good playmaker, but I think there's his ceilings, I think, a little bit lower. Whereas Brogdon, I think, yes, 26, entering maybe the prime of his career. Does he get much better? Probably not, but he won't be a third option in the offense. He's going to be maybe the second. I mean, could still be the third option. Probably going to be the second option, at least when Oladipo's out. So we'll get to see what that looks like. A 50, 40, 90 shooter, as you mentioned, Jack. A very good perimeter defender, which he already has up on D'Lo. I think I'm just a little bit on the Brogdon side, but also it's just a safer pick, I think, as of right now.
Yeah, I think it's safer. It's both guys are definitely a slight overpay, but I think Brogdon, you know what you're getting. D'Angelo has the potential to almost overplay his contract when you get to his, like, because he's 23 right now. I think it's really easy to forget how young he is. Whereas like 24, 25, he might get a little bit better, but by 26, 27, I think you're seeing more improvement in his game. So I think this is really tough. I think you go with a safer contract, so I might lean with Brogdon here. But it would not surprise me if you see D'Angelo Russell become really good, especially if he gets traded to Minnesota. Like, I think he won't max out this contract if he's playing Golden State because of the other options there. But if he gets traded, I think D'Angelo Russell's contract will be better. If he doesn't get traded in Golden State, he's getting maxed that money to be, arguably the third or fourth option on that team. Then I think you lean with Brogdon. And okay, I guess I'm running the game, so I got to give you guys the next
one.
Cory Joseph, 3 years, $37 million, or Thomas Satoransky, 3 years, $30 million.
Thomas Satoransky. I think that the number itself is what sort of speaks out to me, and I think that Thomas Satoransky proved as a starter for Washington all season, alongside a sort of another star. He can run the floor really capably. I think he's an incredibly efficient player. I think Cory Joseph, we've seen the best of him. I think he's in his twilight years. I think the best is behind him. Where I think Thomas Satoransky is in his peak and can maybe even get that a little bit better in the right situation, which hopefully he does for the fans. Who's he playing for, by the way?
Chicago.
Yeah, I think that he could be a nice sort of piece alongside Zach LaVine. I think that that's a really nice sort of fit. There was just so many signings. It's just hard to damn keep up.
There really was. Like, I honestly wonder how many signings there were in the first couple of days. It would probably be close to 100.
It was insane. But yeah, Cory Joseph, I think, is an overpay, and I think is sort of like as a backup to De'Aaron Fox is fine. But I think he's essentially in the same sort of role of what he was in Indiana, maybe slightly better because there isn't Darren Collison sort of there and Aaron Holiday and all these sort of other types to sort of take away his minutes. But I don't think Cory Joseph is worth more than $10 million a season, where I think Thomas Satoransky, if you flip those contracts, I think it almost makes more sense.
I'll go with Satoransky as well.
You said it right.
I just want you guys to know I was
did it with
here
too.
I was sitting here in my head just saying it over and over again because I heard Jack say it. I was like, all right, so I'm going to say it because I'm not going to fuck this up. And I didn't. I think long-term, probably Satoransky. I mean, as you mentioned, Cory Joseph is in the twilight years. He's not going to get much better. I think there's still upside. I mean, if you're the Bulls, that's why you look at them. There already is rumors they're shipping Chris Dunn or they're looking to shop Chris Dunn. I think he can be a complementary piece to Zach LaVine. I don't know what he looks like as a starting point guard or as a point guard with surely elevated minutes. There were certainly nice stretches in Washington. What were they playing for? That would be like the counter argument. But if it's less money than Cory Joseph, I'm not going to say it's the wrong deal.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. And I think you could make an argument that like the Bulls team he's going to play with is better than the team he played with in Washington, where he's going to be asked to be more of a pure point guard because there's going to be guys like Zach LaVine, Otto Porter, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter. If he's healthy by the start of the season, I know he just had like some core surgery, but I'm going with Sato there. But next up I'm going to give you three guys. Enes Kanter at 2 years, $10 million, Ed Davis at 2 years, $10 million, and then Robin Lopez at 2 years, $10 million.
You had me at Ed.
Rank them 1 through 3.
Ed, Robin, Enos.
Same. And I love Ed Davis's role with Utah more than anything. I mean, he's basically Derek Favors for less money, but I almost like him more than Derek Favors because he's just an aggressive rebounder, and I think that's a fantastic fit. I think Robin Lopez, he's going to do exactly what they hoped Pau Gasol would do. Exactly. I mean, you're going to make Brooke Lopez obviously a little bit happy having those guys playing side by side. And then lastly, I mean, Cantor is good for the pick and roll, but what else are we looking for? I mean, there's a decent defensive rebounder, but doesn't give you anything else really.
Robin Lopez.
Go ahead, Jack.
I was just going to say Robin Lopez could skyrocket to number one just for the content possibilities with him and his brother. He already put out a tweet where he put out the Sideshow Bob and Cecil Instagram, where they're fighting over the top bunk. And they're both because they always get they look like the Sideshow Bob brothers. It was hilarious, and I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing them just their bromance, literal bromance, grow. And I think Enes Kanter, he proved some real good toughness on the Portland Trailblazers, and it's nice that he got a contract because he certainly did deserve it. But I think that out of these sort of guys in the role that he's in, because he's going to be forced to play as a starter. If he would have had it been in the Ed Davis, Robin Lopez sort of role as a backup, I think that it'd be much harder to sort of, argue against it because he sort of proved that with the Portland Trailblazers as a starter to an extent too.
That's a great point because all the guys obviously have their weaknesses, and Cantor's going to be asked to probably do the most out of the three, and he probably is he's obviously the biggest defensive liability. Where it's not like Ed Davis and Robin are very mobile, but they do a better job protecting the rim and just having a presence inside. I really want to see Robin shave his head and look like Brooke, and then just try to confuse the shit out of everybody because honestly, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I think the same thing with the Morris twins. Like if they shave their head, like Robin shaves his head, they're going to look exactly the same.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
Speaking of twins, Crimson Striker asks, where's Pau going to land, by the way? Hope he goes to Toronto for the memes.
I don't know what the market looked like for a guy coming off a foot injury at his age. I'm sure he gets picked up somewheres, but I doubt we see him play valuable basketball again. I think he's kind of done.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get picked up until the season. Like, there's just really not a need for, no offense to him, an extremely slow player that's coming off a major injury. He's not really doing much for you on the floor. The only way he really gets signed is he's just a locker room presence.
Yeah.
And that's it for my game. I don't have anything more unless you guys have some contracts off the top you want to compare.
I want to see Kory pop his collar.
Oh, man, I can do that. What was that to me?
There we go. He looks like such a bro now.
Where my White Claws at? Where my White Claws?
TJ.
Screw
TJ.
those Trulies.
He does look like TJ now. That's his alter ego.
Yeah, TJ's my alter ego. Where the White Claws and the pop collars?
Do we hear anything else on Kawhi from before we get out of here, before he signs like 5 minutes after we get off?
It doesn't look like it.
I got a notification that Serge Ibaka is hungry for a decision about Kawhi.
There we go.
That's it.
That's important information.
That's my news for me on Twitter. I've been searching Kawhi so much in the search bar that it's giving me Serge Ibaka is hungry for a decision for Kawhi news.
What did you guys think about Drake giving his own pitch to Kawhi, or at least that was the rumor, and that he's been talking to him a lot? Do you think that helps Toronto at all?
Maybe, but it's like, I would rather Kendrick give me a pitch if I was going to LA. Why couldn't the Lakers get Kendrick in on it?
But obviously, you can have your argument who's a better artist or whatever. Drake definitely has a way bigger brand, like in terms of like notoriety around the league. I read this interesting rumor. I don't know how true it is, that Drake was trying to convince Kawhi, and he said that he was going to have New Balance sponsor the OVO Fest in Canada, which is like a giant fest, but he was getting some backlash from Nike because Drake is signed with Nike. So it's an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Obviously, that's big money, like in terms of hosting an event like that.
That's tampering to the fullest extent if I've ever heard it.
Well, it's not, though, because it's like technically like legal. Like
if
there's nothing.
If I was Nike, I would drop Drake if they said that.
And don't we know tampering doesn't exist?
True.
It doesn't. But
it's like the cloud.
It only exists if you do it during the season. That's at least the win that we've gotten from reporters, that the NBA doesn't really care if you talk to other players, before free agency starts, but it can't be during the season, especially when guys are under contract and playing for playoff seeds.
It only exists if your name is Magic Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you do it on a TV show that everyone's going to see, I don't think that really helps your case. But guys, you got anything else before we get out of here?
I got 2 Kendrick Perkins tweets in the last. Well, they're like an hour and a half ago. So almost before we got on, he goes, "Damn, Kawhi took a 6-hour flight to Toronto for a meeting. Oh shit, I didn't know he took a 6-hour flight to tell them he's not coming back. Oh, Canada wants to smoke. If I were Masia, you're right." Ujari, I would take Kawhi and his people's passports. Last one. Let's get something clear. I was one of the few people that picked Toronto to win and gave Kawhi Jordan his name. Wait, what?
That's what
I've said several times that if I was Kawhi, I would stay in Toronto.
Quality content. Kory reading tweets live on air.
I'm going to set up a YouTube page.
That's a new segment. Kory has to read tweets. Jack, you have to find like the most difficult tweets for him to read. Kendrick Perkins.
Just get names. That was tough. That was not grammatically right. Let me tell you.
I think you look at it. Kendrick Perkins broke the Kevin Durant news 2 weeks ago, but he also is good friends with Kevin Durant. I don't know if he has any type of relationship with Kawhi Leonard at all.
The clout these days is unreal.
Speaking of clout, I'm up to 8,000 likes on this Jared Dudley tweet. Jeez,
wait, you know something? I actually, every time I see somebody tweet that, just so you know, I fucking tweet, Jac Manuell made this, you son of a bitch. Like, don't be trying to, people out there trying to steal your work. They got they're copping your name out even.
Dylan jumped into the group chat, and apparently NBA memes on Instagram sent me a DM on Twitter, and they're like, "Do you have an Instagram?" I'm like, "Nah, just use my Twitter handle." And Dennis Rodman commented on the meme. So I'm going to be solving international relations in North Korea, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
I think that it's enough for you to get in Space Jam yourself. Like they need some Australian flavor. Why not? Jack deserves this.
You're just some guy that they see at like a random pickup gym run. Like, you're like, yo, their basketball rolls down the gym. And you're like, yo, here's your ball back, and you throw it back real cool. Like, that's your moment, man.
They need a man bun in Space Jam too.
I just wrote your part. There you go. You're an actor now. Like,
maybe you get dunked on by LeBron or something cool. But
TJ's going to be my agent.
You're like 6'3", so I mean, you could try to get up the verticality.
Okay.
You know how it goes. Straight up.
For Dame Lillard, maybe he can block that. But that's about it. Guys, that wraps it up for today. As always, thank you everybody for checking us out. iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, ChichyBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube.
Peace out, knuckleheads.